Greetings, fellow Hyperboreans. Dave here, developer of the Hyperborea system for Foundry VTT, back with another feature demo for the latest release. This is release version 1.15.0, issued on the 20th of July, 2025. And today what we're going to talk about is the one feature that was actually part of this release. There was also some code refactoring there's nothing to demonstrate for that. But the feature that I've added to this particular release is what I call ephemeral items. So what is an ephemeral item? It's anything that's conjured, so with a time limit on its existence. So this could be, it could be the weird Warhammer spell that conjures a floating magical warhammer that can be used to attack creatures up to 30 feet away. Or it could be sorceress armor that a wizard might cast to give themselves some additional protection. Any number of spells that summon a usable item, armor, weapons, whatever it happens to be, and has an obvious duration. So at some point that spell expires and the item, as it were, disappears. So that is what an ephemeral item is. And in this case, within the system, you can put a duration on the item and it will actually be deleted from your character sheet at the end of at the expiration point of the spell, of the summoning. So let's look at how to implement these in the system. And we're going to use the two examples of Sorceress Armor spell and the Weird Warhammer spell. So starting with Sorceress Armor, then you can see I've actually got my items directory up here, and I've got some example items already pre-configured so we can go over them relatively quickly. So if I look at my original Sorceress Armor configuration, what I had was I have the spell set up. I pasted the description of the spell into the description. There's not much here for stats. I did use two active effects. One is the protection without armor. One is the protection with natural armor, which if you read the details or the description here, you see that if you're unarmored, you just get AC 7, equivalent to leather armor. If you have natural armor, not wearing armor, if you're wearing armor, this spell is no good. But if you have natural armor of some kind, then you just get a +1 AC bonus. So I originally set it up with two different effects. And so without armor, you would get effectively a temporary AC mod of 2, which would take you from AC 9 to AC 7. Because the idea is you are unarmored. So I just adjusted it like that. So you'd start with the base AC 9, obviously minus your dex adjustment or whatever, but that's why I had that. And then with natural armor, it does a similar temp AC mod adjustment of 1 because it just gives you that +1 bonus. Okay, and these do have the duration of 9.99 is because the spell actually is it. You can see I have special here. It basically lasts until it's dispelled, or until the recipient takes 10 hit points of damage plus 1 hit point per their CA caster ability level. So if I'm a caster ability 5 caster, I can take 15 hit points of damage and then my armor disappears. So there's no fixed duration on this, so you just have to kind of handle it a little bit manually, honestly. But, it is what it is. So this is the old version. I just had two different active effects, and when I cast the spell, what you would see is there would be two buttons in the chat that would indicate to apply one of those two effects, and the player would then choose the appropriate one to click on for their character. Usually it's going to be the unarmored version, of course. Not too many PCs are going to have any sort of natural armor. So, but it could work for NPCs as well, NPC creatures, monsters, whatever you want to call it, spellcasters that might have natural armor, then you would use the other option. So that is my original version for Sorceress Armor. The new version, which can use the ephemeral items, what I have done was everything is the same, mostly the same, except I've added this conjured armor and this link to a Sorceress Armor item document. Under effects, I only have the one with protection for natural armor, which gives the +1 bonus, because that is I just left it like that. I could have actually done a secondary Sorceress Armor, but that just seemed kind of silly. So I left it with the effect for the occasions, the rare occasions where you might need that +1 bonus. But the main thing is you've got this sorceress armor here, which is, as I said, it's a link to another item document. And what that is this sorceress armor here with the shield icon indicating it's an armor item, as opposed to the book icon, which is a spell item. Okay, so here is the ephemeral item that I've been talking about. What you do to create an ephemeral item is you actually create a normal item of whatever type it happens to be. Might be armor, might be a weapon, might be just an item, container, whatever. So in this case, I created an armor item, and I filled in all the numbers that I need. There's no weight to this ephemeral item because it is magical. So the weight class, therefore, is unarmored, so your base move is 40, but it gives you the armor class of 7, equivalent to leather. So now we're getting, this is a little better than just having an effect that applies a +2 bonus. Now we're actually saying, oh, well, our base armor class is 7, equivalent to leather, and 0 damage reduction. So we've already got an advantage there because it's acting more like actual leather armor. Then we have to go into the attributes. First of all, you want to set it to equipped right away. The reason being, as soon as this item is added to the character sheet, obviously it's equipped in the sense that it immediately takes effect on the character. So you want to have that enabled. And then the duration, just as under the effect I had 999. So here I just put 99 to essentially imply permanent or forever until you take damage. Again, that part has to be manually managed in terms of taking damage and realizing, oh, my sorcerer's armor just blinked out of existence because I took 15 points of damage. So I just put a duration of 99 on here, but this is the key item. This is the new feature that you're looking at right here, is having this duration field, which did not exist prior to the recent release. And this is a number. It has to be numeric. No commas, no decimals, no words in here, just numbers. And it's duration in rounds, just like the description says, numbers only for a conjured or ephemeral item. If the item is not ephemeral, just leave this blank. Don't put a 0 in there. Don't put a million in there, just because that's going to confuse the system. Just leave it blank if it's a permanent item, which means all the stuff you've already configured for your game is going to have a null or a blank. It's going to be empty. You don't have to touch anything. You don't have to update your items to say, oh no, this is not, you're fine. All your permanent items are still permanent because as long as duration is empty, it works just fine. But we're going to put a 99 in here just to imply that it does have some duration. It is somewhat ephemeral, okay? And that's really all we have to do is these two items right here are the important part. Normally by default, you leave equipped unchecked for a new item that you're creating. And obviously the duration you'd leave blank for a permanent item. But you want to have those two checked. So then with this item created, in order to create this link, here I'll show you. I just click the edit button to edit this, and you can see this is the link to the document. I'm just going to delete that. So I typed in conjured armor, right? And then I just take my sorceress armor item, the one with the shield icon, and I just drag it right over here, and there it is. You can see it created my link for me again, and I'm just going to do Command S or Control S to save, and now I've got this nice link. And if I click that, it does open up the item for me. Now, what happens when I cast this spell? Well, I'll show you. I'll flip this over to the chat. We've got a wizard here who happens to have the sorcerer's armor spell. Oh, it's not in alphabetical order, so we'll fix that. He has it memorized, so we can cast it. So I'm going to go ahead and cast it. Obviously no attack roll, so I'm just casting the spell. And then it pops over in the chat over here, and you can see conjured armor, sorceress armor. You can also see the apply protection with natural armor. So this is the active effect that you could use to apply that temporary effect to your character or NPC or monster if they have natural armor. But if you're going to just use the ephemeral item, sorcerer's armor, which I think 99 times out of 100 is what people would do because it's a player character that does not have natural armor. Now I'm just going to drag that over to my character sheet just like that. Okay? As the player, I can do that. So now, if I look at my combat tab, voila, I have sorceress armor. It's got all the stats. This is the item. It is already equipped. You can see my AC is 7. I didn't look at that earlier, but if I unequip it, you can see my AC went to 9. You can see I unequipped sorceress armor in the chat over here. I'm going to re-equip it. So it says I equipped it and my AC went to 7. And if I open this item, you can see under attributes, there's the temporary duration, things like that. And so again, now with this item, because it really is permanent until dispelled or I take damage, 15 points or 14. What is my CA? Because it was 10 plus your CA. My CA is 4. So I would have 14 hit points of damage that I could take. And then I would have to manually remove this. Now, to manually delete this, easy. Just hit the trash can and it's gone. Otherwise, because again, there's no actual time duration, that would be the only way to get rid of that. Okay, so that's how you do that though. It's super easy. You just dragged it right over there and it works. Okay, so that's the first example. Now we're going to do the weird Warhammer spell, which I think there's a number of, aside from the sorceress armor, there's one other conjured armor spell that I'm aware of, which is the I believe it's called ice armor, and of course that's for cryomancers typically. It works very similarly though. But there's a number of weapon spells, that is to say spells that summon weapons. Weird Warhammer is just one example. But so we'll use that as our example. So let's go back into my items directory and you can see I've got Weird Warhammer all set up. So again, here's my original version of the spell. So this is what I was doing right up until yesterday. And what you had to do was you set up the attack roll with the checkbox. You give it the damage, 1d8 plus 1. And then, of course, this has to be manually managed based on the CA of the caster. So my CA of my cleric, Adovra, she's right here. I believe she's a CA 4. Yeah, level 4. She's going to be a CA of 4. Yep. So, I would have it under this one with the d8 plus 1 damage. And then also it's plus 1 to hit. So under attributes, I have to adjust the roll formula to say your d20 plus your FA, that's your fighting ability, plus 1. That plus 1 is the item bonus, if you will, for the spell. So this is how I would have had this set up. And then in order to use this spell to attack someone, and the range is 30 feet. In order to use this to attack someone, I would just have to, I'm going to put this in air quotes, cast the spell over and over again. And normally, obviously, she's not really casting the spell, but that is within the system how you would use it to make your attacks. So that means if you are enforcing the spell memorization feature in the game, you would have to constantly be increasing your memorization. I might have to bump this up because I might use this for 6 attacks in a given combat. Or I guess the duration is at CA rounds, so I would have a maximum of 4 uses of it once per round for 4 rounds. So I could do that, and then I could attack with it 4 times before it's suddenly, I'm out of memorizations, and if I tried to attack with it again, the system would tell me it's not memorized. But that's how I would use it, is I would just be casting it over and over like that. And to me, that always felt clunky. That's actually what drove the creation of this new feature, was literally this spell and how it just kind of annoyed me. So that was how the old, and that still works, of course. You can still do it that way if you're already set up with Weird Warhammer or any other spell that conjures a weapon, and you have it set up with an attack roll and damage and the attributes over here with your roll formula. And especially if you're not enforcing the cannot cast unless memorized rule, then the player can totally ignore the memorization and they can just cast it over and over again on their turn to attack. But again, that's the old way, the original way. That's what this means, orig. So if we go to the new version of Weird Warhammer right here. So once again, the description is largely the same, although again, I've added a conjured weapon bit of text and a link to the Weird Warhammer ephemeral item document. You can see I removed the attack roll and the damage, and I removed the roll formula. Because what I did was I started with my original. I duplicated it, right? You can just right-click and duplicate. I created a dupe, and then I just edited the duplicate. And I imagine that most people who have been using this system for a while, they already have these, presumably, you dear watcher, already have these spells set up in some way. Maybe you haven't even gone as far as I have to add any of the attack functionality, but you're looking at this going, wow, I can do that? Well, yes, you can. So now you're going to either edit your existing one or you're going to create a duplicate to work on a new version of it and test it. But again, I'm going to edit this. I'm just going to add conjured weapon, and I'm going to drag my Weird Warhammer ephemeral weapon over here to create that link, as I already showed you how to do. So let's look at the weird warhammer for a second. Oh, there we go. So again, you set it up as any ordinary weapon or item, but in this case it is a weapon. So you give it, I always give it the name of the spell, so it's obvious what it is. And in the description, conjured by the weird warhammer spell. That's just a habit that I've already developed in the last 2 days of testing this system. You do whatever you want to do. So again, with the weird warhammer, if I pop back over here and let's just save that to get rid of the edit ability. You see that for caster levels 1 to 4, you're +1 to hit and D8 +1 damage. Caster level 5 to 8, you're +2 and D8 +2 damage. So I have it set up for a CA4 caster, right? Because that is what Adovra the cleric is, CA4. So she is going to be casting at the +1 level. So I gave her +1 on attack and damage and 1d8 for the base damage. I went ahead and went in here and changed it. Oh, I didn't. Basic. Well, I'm going to switch it to bludgeoning. You do what you want to do. Again, this is a totally optional feature, the damage types. I've started using it when I remember, at least. I think it's kind of cool to have the different damage types. Mechanically, it doesn't change anything really, but I think it's kind of cool anyway, so I'm going to change that to bludgeoning. But yeah, you set up your pluses, you set up your damage, you make sure your roll formula is correct. So in this case, keep in mind that for weapons, fighting ability is automatically added as part of the system. So you don't have to add the plus at FA like I did with a spell. With a spell, if the fighting ability is included in the attack roll, you have to actually explicitly put it in the formula. But for any weapons, you don't have to worry about that. So you can just have the 1d20. Conversely, your attributes, strength and dex, do need to be added for weapon attacks. So for a melee attack, you would normally put at str.attack mod. You know, it would be like, in fact, when I first created this item, this is the default formula. So you do have to remove the strength attack modifier because that's not included in a weird warhammer attack. Remember, you're not actually wielding it with your hands. It's actually a floating hammer that attacks. You just point it at a target and tell it to attack. And it attacks at your FA, at the cleric's fighting ability, but it does not use the cleric's strength or dexterity modifier for that matter. For a missile weapon, you'd have dex here. And you'll see that I have set this up as dex because the spell has a 30-foot range, which means the warhammer can fly up to 30 feet away from my cleric and attack a foe that far away. If it's set up as melee, the system will object to me trying to make a melee attack at a target that's beyond 1 square away from me. So I have to set it up as as missile with a 30-foot range in order to account for that spell range of 30 feet. Missile is really irrelevant because it's not like we're worried about having this dex attack modifier. We don't have that anyway. So we're going to reduce that back to the 1d20. And you'll have to look at the spell descriptions to see how the formula needs to be. But for Weird Warhammer, this is correct. Because again, it's going to include your fighting ability automatically. You don't have to include that. But if it's a conjured item that is actually handheld, like a flaming sword, I believe there's a druid spell that might do that, and it's actually handheld, they would actually get their strength bonus on their attack roll. So you would want to leave that in there. Anyways, so 1d20, missile, 30 feet, that's because of the spell. Again, I have it equipped because it is immediately usable, therefore equipped. And this one actually does have a duration. And for the Weird Warhammer, the duration is 1 round per CA level. Well, her CA is 4, so I just put a 4 in here. Now, I think in the future I might actually add a feature to allow you to put a variable in here so you could put at CA. But for now, you have to put a number. So I'm going to put 4 in there. And then what you might want to do is double check that as your character is going up in level, re-edit the item, whatever you got to do to make that appropriate for your character class. Or just edit it, remember to edit it every time you cast it, okay? But anyways, so we've got the duration of 4 rounds in there, and that's all set up then. Roll formula, 4 rounds, equipped. Those are the 3 key items on the attributes tab. And then obviously the standard stuff for weapons under the left side column here, as well as in the header section. So now that I've got my Weird Warhammer set up, and of course I've dragged it over and made it a document link in my spell right here, now on Adovra, when I cast Weird Warhammer, you're going to see the same thing. I'm going to cast it. No attack roll required anymore. We're going to hit that. You can see the description. There's my Weird Warhammer. I'm going to drag this onto my character sheet. I'm going to go to the Combat tab. There's my Weird Warhammer. And if I open that up, it's all the stuff just like you would expect. It's got the duration of 4, and it's all good. And then I can attack with it just like that. Now, I don't have a target selected, no big deal, but I can do a standard attack with it. And when I do the attack, you're going to see I'll make the roll. And when you look at the formula, as I promised, it includes your fighting ability automatically. It doesn't have to be part of the formula. It's automatically included. And of course, it includes the item attack mod because I had a +1 in there. No situational modifier, so my ultimate roll is a 15, which hits an AC 9, or an AC 5, really. And so then I can immediately roll my D8 +1 damage. And there we go. And it's got the damage. You can see it did bludgeoning because I went in and checked that. And then the item damage modifier of +1. So I get a total of 6 hit points of damage. So, and then now if I actually do this in the context of a combat, so let's actually take Adovra and let's add her to an encounter. And we'll just show you this real quick. I'm not even going to add anybody else to the target here. Oh, actually, you know, maybe I will. I'll just add this guy. And he's, you know, about 15, 20 feet away from her, so he's within the 30-foot range. And now he's there. And now I'm going to zip through this pretty quick. But we'll just say it's Adovra's turn. She's going to make I have to begin the combat. She's going to make an attack on him, so I will target my big bad orc, big ugly orc, Weird Warhammer. You can see it's within your range distance of 30 feet. Medium and long are 0. That's by design. So we just have that. We're going to do an attack. And we'll see if we actually do hit. I got to go back over here. Looks like I missed. Okay, what I'm really going to do is I'm going to pop that over there. That way we can see both of these for now. I'm not going to worry about being able to see the orc or Adovra for now. I'm just going to advance the round just like that. So now we're in round 2. And now you're going to see that the duration on here has dropped from 4 to 3. So you can see that's dropping as we go round by round. So she's going to attack this big bad orc again. Maybe we'll hit this time. I can hope. Yeah, that's a good roll. See, I hit the orc. So I can roll my damage. I could apply that to the orc. We're going to advance the round again. We're going to attack again. I don't even know why I'm bothering to attack because really I'm just trying to advance it till it deletes. Okay, we missed. So that's the end of round 3. So now we're moving to round 4. This is round 4. This is the last round for Weird Warhammer. So I'm going to use it one last time. Excuse me. And now we're going to advance the round. But you can see at the end of her turn, I haven't even left round 4 yet. I just moved to the big ugly orc. You can see that Weird Warhammer has deleted. So the system, at the end of her turn, it checks to see, has this expired yet? Every time at the end of her turn within the round, it checks. And you saw that it expired. In fact, you even see in the chat, conjured item has expired, Weird Warhammer. And so it was deleted from her sheet. That was even before the round is over because it was still Adovra's turn at that point. But at the end of her turn, bam, it's gone. And we advanced to round 5, and the combat would continue from there. But she no longer has Weird Warhammer. She has to switch to her regular physical Warhammer or cast some other spell or whatever she wants to do. So I'll bring that back down to 1. Anyways, so that's how that works. Pretty straightforward, I hope. I tried to make it as simple as possible so that people could get up and running with it as quickly as possible and really enjoy that feature. And so there you go, folks. Happy gaming, happy adventuring in Hyperborea. This is Dave, signing off.